Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books. What a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together. What a yummy snack.
Afternoon, whenever it is that you are joining us for this episode of PBJamz. I'm super excited to be here with Faye Duncan to talk about another one of her books. This one is called Yellow Dog Blues, and it is about the blues. It's awesome. So thank you, Alice, for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation, Tani.
Such fun books. And this one, as I said, is all about the blues. And I know from our previous conversations that you are living in Memphis. And that's actually, my husband and I went to school at Freed-Hardeman University, which is in Henderson.
Yes, that's not far. It's like up Highway 64.
Yeah, it's about just over an hour from where you are. So that's where that's where. So we spent some time out in West Tennessee, where you are as well. Loved our time there.
Now, where are you now?
Now I'm in North Carolina.
What city? What city you're in?
It's a small town, but we're between Wilmington and Fayetteville. Like almost halfway between those two. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So a long way from where we were in Memphis, from where we met. But
wait, you met in Memphis?
Well, we met in Henderson at college. Okay. Here. Yeah.
Now, are y'all from Tennessee?
No, I'm from North Carolina. I'm back home, and my husband Shane, he is from Georgia. From Dawsonville, Georgia, just about an hour north of Atlanta. Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, hey, so you're honorary Tennessean, so it's all good.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, we lived there for several years and enjoyed our time there very much. Chickasaw State Park. If you have not been to Chickasaw State Park, you need to go check that out because you're close enough. You would really enjoy it there.
All right. Thank you.
Nature, beautiful there. So anyway, thank you for being here and talk to us about Yellow Dog Blues. How did that inspiration and process come about?
Okay, so I live in Memphis. Memphis is the front door of the Mississippi Delta. And one summer, it was like, because, I taught school. So one summer, it was like 2014, I had received a teacher's grant to study blues music and the civil rights movement as it happened in the Delta in 2014 at Delta State. Go Fighting Okra. And so when I went, the teachers, we traveled up and down Highway 61 because Highway 61 is considered the blues trail. And it's also a lot of impactful, pivotal civil rights activity happened along Highway 61. And so a part of that grant, it required us at the end of the week to write something, make a lesson plan, or make some kind of preparation for something educational that we could share with children. So because I write books, I've been writing picture books since 1993. I wanted to write a picture book that was about the blues. And also because I'd grown up listening to the blues, listening to WDIA, I wanted to share something that would give children an appreciation for that music that had shaped my life. So I wrote this. Initially, I wrote for the program's requirement, I wrote a story about the infestation of the boll weevil, the infestation of the boll weevil in like 1919 or something, and it comes from Texas and then it comes to the South to Tennessee, Georgia, and et cetera and so on. And so I did that to satisfy my requirement. But once I got home, my agent and things is like, my agent was like, no, can't sell this. And so I said, well, I'm going to modify the story and I'll start with something else. So for over a span of like 2 years, I was trying to rewrite the story of Yellow Dog Blues. I moved from the boll weevil to now writing about, I had a hypothesis. Okay, what if there was a dog who runs away and his owner goes looking for him. And what if that dog runs along Highway 61, right? So if the dog runs along Highway 61, there are landmarks along Highway 61. I then get to talk about Blue's landmarks, but then the dog is going somewhere and the little boy is running after the dog. Like, and so I was like, yeah, that's gonna be cute, right? Mm-hmm. And so then I started writing it. I was workshopping it because at the time I was a part of like a writers group, and I was workshopping it with my writers group, and they were telling me things that can make it better. And then I was like, I think I have it, right? I think I have it. But I wasn't sending it to my agent. I wasn't sharing it because I don't know what I was waiting on. I don't know what I was waiting on. But 2016 came. And in 2016, there was a spirit of division across the nation where I realized when I was going places, there was this tension between Black and white people that was disturbing me. I was going into the airport and interactions between people, like, it was disconcerting. And I was like, there needs to be some type of racial reconciliation in the world. And I can only control me.
Right.
What I do. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reach out and find an illustrator that is not Black. And I'm going to see if I can find an illustrator that is interested in doing something with me under the banner of racial reconciliation, something that is intentional about Black and white folks working together to create something, right? And I was like, oh, you know what? Perfect book is Yellow Dog Blues, right? And then I thought, who? And Chris Rashka is an illustrator who majors in music. Like, the majority of his books are gonna be something about music. He did Charlie Parker Played Bebop. He did a book on Sun Ra. He did a book on Thelonious Monk, right? He just finished a book on Mary Lou Williams, right? And so I was like, oh, I wonder if he would be interested in helping me do something where I'm intentionally working with someone beyond my Black culture. Mm-hmm. And I sent him the manuscript. Now, Chris Rashka is a Caldecott winning illustrator. I sent him the manuscript. He read it. He liked it. And he was like, let's do it. And so that was like in 2016. It took us a couple of years it took us at least 2 years or so to find an editor who vibed off the story and saw a vision for the story, because the story is about a little dog who is not coming back home.
Right.
And so I guess, for some people, for some editors, I guess that was a sad ending. But for us, it was an ending that made sense, because all friendships that you have don't come to stay. All relationships that you have don't come to stay. Sometimes people are like scaffolding. They come for a time, but once they have achieved as your friend and you have achieved as their friend what you have come to do, sometimes they move on, and that's okay. And so he agreed to do it, right? And we got the book done. He did something very interesting. He made the book embroidery and paint. And so to make it a book, the editor and the artistic team, they had to photograph pages, right? But then this is what happened. So once the book was released and it was time for me to go and talk about the book with children and teachers and librarians, I had to ask myself, like, what is this book about? And I realized this book is about my mom and my dad's divorce when I was a small child. Oh. When my mom and my dad divorced, they did so amicably. They did so in love. There was no big drama. But if we go to the lesson of the story, it was no big drama because my dad was like a Vietnam veteran. He was wrestling with PTSD, whatever you call that thing. And he was a school teacher, but he was just not made to stay within the confines of the nuclear home. And my mother understood, she came to understand that. And she was like, she loved him enough to let him go and live his life, to wrestle with his, with his ailments from his wounds from the war. And that was, I was a child. I didn't understand it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older and I was writing this book, this story, and I realized this is about my mom and my dad. And I thought, there are a lot of children probably wrestling with the parting of parents and wrestling with friends who or when friends move away and now we're not friends anymore because my friend moved away to another city, to another street, to another town. But I gotta be okay with that, right? Because everybody doesn't come to stay. Every friendship doesn't come to stay. Every late relationship doesn't come to stay. And so we get to the end of the story is, what is the moral of this story? What is the lesson in this tale? Some dogs are very faithful. They will never leave your side. But some dogs ramble and run the road. They love you, and then they're gone. Yellow Dog Blues. And then the good part is, like, when it comes to teachers using this as a teaching tool, I recommend that they get maps of the Delta, maps of Mississippi. And then, because I intentionally wanted to introduce them to the Blues Trail, introduce them to landmarks about the blues, I recommend they get a map, get a Blues Trail, and then at the end of the book, in the back matter, you can then find, children on the map can find Highway 61. They can find Dockery Plantation. They can find Rosedale, which is where the myth of Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil, Rosedale, which is at Highway 8 and 1, Hicks Tamales, Memphis, Tennessee, Bill Street. And then on Tamales, teachers can hold conversations about there being 3 minorities in the Mississippi Delta that lived in harmony together. That was the Chinese population, that was the Black sharecropper population, and then there was the Mexican population, because the Mexican population, they were migrants. Migrant laws were different than they are now. And so literally there were people in Mexico that made it their ambition and their goal to come to the Delta every year annually to participate in the agriculture season of cotton production. And so many things can be taught with this fun little book. And adults are reading it on one level, children will be reading it on another level, and then teachers can use it to teach something about geography, to teach something about music, to teach something about American history.
Yeah, those layers are definitely fabulous. As my husband and I were reading it this morning, my copy actually came in the mail today as we're talking, and so I had read through it, already, and then he came in and he picked it up and he was reading the back matter to me as I was cooking breakfast, and so we were talking about some of those things, and he was pointing out like how interesting that there would be like a tamale place, like you don't think of that as being a big Hispanic, influenced area, but that makes perfect sense that they were coming for the agriculture.
It came for seasons, right? And so what happens is, like, that's also fascinating too, if you want to have children doing some kind of Epicurean, exploration. What happened in the Delta with the tamale is that the Mexicans came using their tamale, which was, I think, a flour base, and then the Black folks modified it, made it a fusion, and they used theirs as meal. So one person, I think it's like somebody boils it and then another person does something else to it. Like there are these different preparations of cooking it, but without that fusion and interaction of those two cultures, then you wouldn't have this new thing. So like there's a blues trail in the Mississippi Delta, there's also a hot tamale trail. So you have people every summer who come to Mississippi, and they travel Highway 61 doing the hot tamale trail, going to Clarksdale, going to Rosedale, going to Greenwood, going to Greenville, for the different hot tamales.
How interesting. That is very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
geography was definitely something that I thought about, especially as he was reading the back matter and you talk about all those little landmarks and stuff. And this illustration style is absolutely amazing, and it's perfect for it's just perfect for this book, and it's so interesting. I've seen a few done with embroidery, but I think this is maybe the most unique one I've seen. I love the fusion of the paint and the fabrics and the embroidery together.
Collage. Yes. And you know what? I was just, you mentioned something about the illustrations, but I know that many of your followers, I know some of them are aspiring writers.
They are.
And what I want to remind people is we are all a classic people. And as a classic people, we deserve a classic literature, right? So I want to encourage your writers to look at some of the classic picture books and see how you can do a new spin on them. So look at some of, or look at classic music or fables. Look at the fables. Look at the folk tales. Look at the spirituals. Look at the blues songs. And then how can you do a new version of that for this new generation of children, right?
Yeah.
Look at the myths. The Roman myths, the Egyptian myths, the what's the other one? It's
the Greek myths.
The Greek myths, yeah. Look at the variety of myths. Do what Rick Riordan did. Look and see how you can reinterpret these classic stories to make them applicable to today. And that's what I did with This Train Is Bound for Glory. It's like it was an old song in public domain, right?
Right.
And so I was like, so you don't have any conflict of interest there. So just now make it new for you, make it new for a new generation. Like what do children need now? And how can you give it to them? Like, how can you think about that? This is a challenge for you. How can you rewrite the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? Because the point of the story is a principle that is going to be concrete and solid as the day is long. But how can you do a new interpretation of that in this day and age? And then what's good about that is your conflict and your story structure and plot is already there. All you do is got to find the emperor some new clothes. That's all you got to do, right? Because everything else is there. You just got to find some new elements for it. But the structure, the bones are there. You just got to find some new clothes for it.
Yeah, it's always fun to play around with those. I've done a couple of musical retellings recently. That's something that I've been playing around with. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play around with those. And you do have a lot of the structure that's already built in, but then how you change that, there's just no end. I mean, there's so many different versions now of the Three Little Pigs, like there's so many different versions, changing the point of view, changing the setting, changing it from pigs and a wolf to Three Things and Something Else. And it's always so cool to see how people take that creativity and run with it.
And then to look for some new stories. Like when I'm writing, because I write a lot of historical fiction. Historical fiction. And then I write a lot of nonfiction, a lot of biographies. And so my thing is, oftentimes I'm looking for the unexplored personalities, right? Everybody is writing about Dr. King, right? But nobody was looking at Coretta. So I wrote a new story about Coretta Scott King called Coretta's Journey. I wrote a book about, you talk about, where is Freeman Hardeman? It's
in Henderson, Tennessee.
And what county is that?
Chester County. Chester County.
Chester County, right. But Chester County is next to Haywood County, and it's next to Fayette County. And so like when I was looking for a like a historical fiction to write about, I wanted to address a history that few people understood. And that's like about voting rights in America. Like few people understood or understand now that the voting rights movement of the 60s that America experienced, it did not start in Mississippi with Fannie Lou Hamer. It started in Somerville, Tennessee. Oh. In 1959, right? And so the sharecroppers of Somerville influenced those college kids from up north who came to Mississippi, who went to Alabama, who came from Nashville and infiltrated the rural South. They got all of their inspiration from Somerville sharecroppers, but it's a history that few people know. So when you're thinking of writing books, look at those subjects that are pivotal, that are important, that are necessary to be an educated and critical thinker for young children, but they have not been explored, right? If you want to do Martin Luther King, fine, but let's find some aspect of his personality. Let's find some aspect of his history that has not been looked at before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Meshing the old and the new.
Exactly.
Yep. Making it for a universal audience of today. Absolutely.
Yes. Yep. So that's that on that. What else do I want to help you all with today? As teachers, particularly those of you who are teachers, as teachers, let me tell you why you have the advantage in writing for children. You have the advantage in writing for children because you know the curriculum, you know where there are gaps in the curriculum, and therefore you know what children need as new, emergent readers and learners, right? So like if you look behind me and you see the book Memphis Martin and the Mountaintop, I live in Memphis. I've been teaching, I taught 30 years. But when I was teaching in Memphis, I realized from having interactions with my students year in, year out, I realized that the students in Memphis, they understood that Dr. King was killed at the Lorraine Motel. They understood where. Mm-hmm. Something very, wrote where, the where of it. But they did not understand or have a hypothesis of the why was he killed. And at the time that I wrote this book, there was no picture book about his assassination and the why, a hypothesis of why he was killed. And I felt like, okay, you as a child, as a student, right? Okay, you can tell me where, but there's no efficacy in that. That is not informing your life. That is not helping you in your pursuit of your dreams. I need you to understand he was killed because he was coming for economic rights. And therefore, you as a new potential worker who deserves rights, who deserves money to take care of your family, you're a child now, but you're not going to stay a child forever. Right. And so you need to understand that there are structures in place to keep you as even a young child, to keep you from making a livelihood as a teacher, as a fireman, as a policeman, as a cosmetologist, as a mechanic, as an entrepreneur. There are things and structures in place that are going against you. And you need to be thinking about, oh, you know what? These hurdles are still in place. So as a child, I'm not going to stay a child forever. Like, what kind of adult do I want to be? right? Am I going to be one that just that refuses, don't rock the boat, just shut up, go along to, to get along, while your profession is, is just debased? Like, and so activism, like, do you want to raise students who are thinking from the perspective of a critical thinker, and who are employing their own personal agency, right? And so your books have the power to do that. Your books, as a school teacher who wants to write books for children, your books have the power to activate personal agency within the minds and the hearts of the young readers that you are trying to reach. And your books have the power to bring comfort. And your books have the power to inspire creativity and genius.
Yes.
So have it as your mission. Yes, you are a teacher, you are an educator. And so the books that you will write, they will educate, they will entertain, they will inspire. And as you get up every day to do that, then God will honor you and he will meet you. He will quicken your mind with ideas. He will connect you with people who can connect you with people who can connect you with people to bring you before your agent, before your editor, right? He will take you, he will give you inspiration and have you go on a little trip. You think you just going on a trip because it's spring break. And then when you go there, you go to some museum and you see something that every child needs to understand. And you go on that pursuit to write about it. And then I want to say this, because I know I've talked your ear off. I want you to, the Bible says, do not underestimate small beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to remember and look around where you were born. Look around your city, your town, and look at your town and your city through the lens of the world stage. What's important about your city or your town, as small or as big as it can be? So many of my books are going to be about Memphis, are going to be about places close to Memphis. Memphis is the front door of the Delta. I write about Delta blues. Memphis is 50 miles from Somerville, from was it Henderson, Chester County. And so I write about the people in the times of the 50s in that area. I write about civil rights leaders from Memphis and who participated in the movement on a large stage. I write about Coretta Scott King, yes, but I specifically write about what happens when Coretta Scott King came to my town. When Coretta Scott King came to Memphis in 1968, baby, she preached her first sermon. Children need to know that. She did more than singing. She preached her first sermon. Where did she do? Where did she do that? She did it in my city. And I need children in my city to know, hey, Coretta Scott King preached her first sermon in your city.
Right.
And so think about where you're born, think about where you've lived, think about the cities and towns that you have shaped you. And then go about writing those places and their history and how it fits on the world stage. Memphis fits on the world stage because Dr. King was assassinated here. And Dr. King came fighting for economic rights here, not just for Black folk, but for poor people. He was coming for poor people to help poor people in Appalachia, poor people in the West that were doing migrant work, poor people in the South, poor people in the North that were living in the inner city. And now the inner cities were being abandoned by industry, right? He had come here as a voice to say, hey, I'm going to Washington to speak for economic rights for every single person in America, working full time, but making poor people's wages, starvation wages, right? That happened in my town. What happened in your town? Mm-hmm. What happened in your town that children need to know about? I need you to write about that.
Yeah. Great tips. So I know in the other episode that you and I did together, we talked about what was coming next for you. Is there, talk to us about
history? Yes.
What's happening?
I'm excited to do that. So, we've been talking about history. We've been talking about looking at important history that has happened right where we are. Well, my next book, not only is it about Coretta Scott King, I'm very interested in everybody reading that book because it's looking at the life of Coretta Scott King. It's called Coretta's Journey. It's looking at the life of Coretta's her life, her activism through the lens of someone who had to overcome patriarchy. Because during the civil rights movement, all of the Black male leaders wanted to speak, but they only wanted the women to sing. And so my book is looking at Coretta's journey. It's looking at Coretta's life through the lens of someone who, like Martin, was a prophet, who someone like Martin was an activist, who someone like Martin, once he died, then had to not use her singing voice, but she had to use her preaching voice, her prophetic voice to inspire the nation to not forget Martin and to make his name a holiday where people could be inspired to continue on this journey of liberation. So I'm doing that, but then also a book close to home, there's a book called Traveling Shoes, which is about a five-time Olympian named Willie B. White, born in Greenwood, Mississippi, but educated as a Tiger Belle at Tennessee State. She went to the Olympics 5 times over a consecutive 20 years. That means she was an amateur athlete and she kept her body in shape for 20 years so that she was a participant in 5 Olympic Games. She won her first Olympic medal when she was 16. She ran with Wilma Rudolph. Everybody knows Wilma Rudolph. Don't nobody know Willie B. White. Do they need to know Willie B. White? Of course they do, because her life was one of persistence, one of grit, one of tenacity, one of endurance, one of agency, because she was like, look, I picked cotton as a 10-year-old child. I don't wish to pick cotton again. My intelligence and my athleticism will make me a world traveler. That's why it's called Traveling Shoes. So she dedicated herself to keeping her mind sharp. She dedicated herself to keeping her body sharp so that she could run and travel around the world. And so what I do in that book is, there is Dr. King, who is marching to the mountaintop and who is marching for justice, but I juxtapose his life to Willie B's life, and Willie B's life, and I juxtapose Willie B's life to Martin's life to say that, yeah, Martin marched, but Willie B ran to the mountaintop. And so that's another book that's coming up. So I mean, I got like, I have dedicated myself to revising books until they sing, until they ring with lyricism. I'm committed to the editing process. And so once I learned the power of editing and the power of revision and the power of rewriting and drafting and drafting and drafting and drafting, once I learned it well. And so just, what is that Jesus said, keep watch with me and just, stay up on the books that I have. Go to my website, alicefayeduncan.com. I have, for teachers, I have lots of teacher activities that are free PDF files that you can use with my books for your kiddos. I have books for small kids in elementary school. I have books for middle school and high school students. Do Lord remember me? Don't forget about me. And, if you just need a quick tip or a quick encouragement, my email is there on my website. Send me an email and I will send you whatever information I have to help you. I have 30 years of publishing information, and somebody helped me. And so I'm going to cast my bread upon the water. I am willing to help you and give you all the information I have. So thank you, Miss Tani, for inviting me to speak with you. Call me anytime. I am here. I'm just a Zoom light away.
And that is the truth, as we know.
Zoom like away, baby. Call me anytime, all right?
It has been such a fun conversation, and I'm going to link up Alice's information below, the website, the book information for this book, and then on her website you can find all the others. And we're going to have more teaching tips and stuff for you below, as well as the teaching guides that she offers on her site. So be sure to check out all those things below in the episode. Thank you so much for joining us for another fantastic episode. I'm telling you, we pack so much into these conversations. They're money. So I hope you're enjoying them as much as I am, and learning as much as I am. And I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time on PBJamz.
PBJamz, reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time.